Hello, my name is Isabella Hamilton, and for my author discussion, I chose to do Zora Neale Hurston. A little bit about Zora Neale Hurston is that she was an established world-renowned author, filmmaker, and anthropologist. In her works, she portrays the racial struggles in the American South during the 1900s. In many of her writings and films, she portrayed African-American folklore, which you learn that she studies quite a bit, and a lot of her writings are about it. Her most popular novel is Their Eyes Were Watching God, which was published in 1937. She's also well known for being part of the Harlem Renaissance. A little bit about her childhood and personal life. She was born in Alabama, January 1st, 1891. She was the fifth of 8 kids. Her father was John Hurston. He was a carpenter as well as a Baptist preacher. Her mother, Lucy Potts Hurston, was a school teacher. She died in Florida on January 28th from a heart disease, and she is buried in an unmarked grave in Fort Pierce. She grew up in Eatonville, Florida. Her mother died when she was at a very young age, at around in 1904. This was really, really hard for Zora. From what I had read, she had a hard time coping with her mother's death. In June 1918, she completed all of her high school requirements from Morgan Academy in Baltimore, and she moves around quite a lot. But at age 16, she moved to New York City, where she was immersed. During the Harlem Renaissance, during that stage, she had moved there, and that's how she got well known for being part of this time in history. In 1922, she graduates from Howard University in Washington, D.C. with an associate's degree. Soon after, she attends Barnard College and studies anthropology. And in 1927, she moved to Florida to study and collect African-American folklore. From all that I read and I collected was that she had actually had 3 husbands, 2 of which she divorced, and she died with her late husband. She traveled quite a bit, like across the country for degrees, and she had accomplished many awards from different places. What I thought was interesting that she had also traveled across seas from Haiti and Jamaica. Highlights of her life, which more focused on her literary accomplishments. In 1921, she published her first short story called John Reddings Goes to Sea. In the 1920s, after graduating with her associate's degree, she published many passages such as Matsy, Possum or Pig, and Eatonville Anthology. One of her turning points of her young career was when she had turned heads in 1925 at the Literary Awards, sponsored by Opportunity Magazine, with 2 second place awards. The first one was being a second place fiction prize for her short story Spunk. The second place award that she won was in drama for her play Color Struck. And then after that, she had won 2 honorable mentions. In 1930, she collaborated with Hughes on a play called Mulebone, a comedy of a Negro life in 3 acts. In 1934, she publishes her first novel, Jonah's Guard Vine, which portrayed African-American life. And it also had great review from critics. Shortly following, she published her second novel, which is more well-known than the first. It's called Mules and Men. It was published in 1935. And then short after, it was like year after year, she was coming out with a new novel, and some of them were her most famous, such as Their Eyes Were Watching God. Tell My Horse was published in 1938, and Moses Man of the Mountain was published in 1939. All of these novels that she started gathering up were established her as like a well-known, firm author. Some of the literary themes that she included in her text were very strong to me personally as I was reading. Her most popular novel was called Their Eyes Were Watching God, and it had like very important literary themes that connected with African Americans. And they also connected with the rest of her writing as well. So I just wanted to focus on these main three. In this novel, language, speech, and silence was one of the themes. After Henry Louis Gates Jr. analyzed the novel, he states that with the project of finding a voice, with language as an instrument of injury and salvation, of selfhood and empowerment. So I thought this resonated very well with the African American community because there was a discrepancy with either speaking out or being silenced, and the way that she had conveyed it in this book was very inspiring. Um, Another theme was power and conquest by means of fulfillment. The main character labors under the illusion that he can control the world around him, and that by doing so, he can achieve some sense of profound fulfillment. And there was a bit of controversy during her book when explaining this because the main character wasn't being fulfilled by his philosophy that he had, and it was leading to his own demise. The third one was love and relationship versus independence. With this one, I found very interesting. So the main character achieves a strong sense of self and comes to appreciate her independence, but her journey towards enlightenment is not undertaken alone. And she demonstrates how men and women need one another because we each have qualities unique to our sexes that can benefit one another, which I completely and totally agree with. And she also emphasizes at the same time how independence can lead to fulfillment as well. So it was encouraging like this mutual respect for the two. And I thought that was a great message because sometimes I have a hard time balancing either or because you're either super dependent on someone or you're super independent. So I liked that message. Her importance, Zora Neale Hurston was a huge contributor to the acceptance of African Americans. Hurston being a scholar of ethnographic research made her a pioneer writer of folk fiction, primarily about how the South, which led her being one of the most prominent writers in the Harlem Renaissance. During a harsh time period when others' opinions were hardly heard and validated, Hurston took it upon herself to bring her stories to light and stand up for what she believed was right, which is extremely inspiring. Here is my works cited, and that is the end. Thank you.